Mr. Speaker.
Right.
Mr. Bernal, for what purpose?
Right.
Gentleman yield for a question.
Gentleman yield for a question.
I do.
Gentleman yields.
So it seems that sometimes my role here is to make sure we all understand what we're doing. And so I wanted, if you could, to talk about the fiscal note of the bill, and not just to schools, although I appreciate that, but what it would mean to all the other taxing jurisdictions.
Right. The fiscal note is an estimate, obviously, because the state doesn't really, they're grants, of course, but for other political subdivisions besides school districts like cities, counties, special purpose districts, that's just an estimate by the comptroller's office.
What's the estimate?
It's quite large. I've got the updated one right here. And it's based on one assumption that I do not think is entirely accurate, that values would decrease at 0.5% per year. We don't know that. We haven't seen that, at least in my area, except for once after a hurricane when there's a large amount of damage to improvements where the improvement value goes down. It's rare for values to go down. This bill really is addressing when values are going up and when our local CADs disagree with how much the comptroller is saying they should go up. No.
Okay, I appreciate the explanation, and I actually like the spirit of the bill, but as with all of our other bills, there is a fiscal note that's associated with it, not just for schools, but for the other taxing jurisdictions. And I'm wondering if you could tell us what that is.
Right, so it's estimated for counties at $59 million, $64 million for cities, and $51 million for special purpose districts. But that's an estimate that I don't think is frankly accurate, because one, it's assuming a 0.5% decrease per year. Also, that's also assuming that they keep the tax rate the same as the valuations go down, which I don't believe they'll go down either.
And so what was it for schools?
For schools, it was $197 million.
So, and that's per year?
Per year estimate, yeah.
Okay, so at least according to the comptroller, despite your objections and your dispute over the assumptions and the way that it was calculated, the comptroller says that this bill will cost close to $2 billion a year. Is that fair?
Well, that's over a number of years. Right. That's only in values too. So here's the issue that they're not building in here is what we've done with the 2.5% limit for M&O for school districts, and then also the 3.5% limit for the large cities and counties. So that doesn't build that into this equation, because what would happen, say for example, in a large city, right? Say the value went down that 0.5%, which I disagree with, but let's assume that they're right. Then that means with that 3.5%, you could actually raise the tax rate 4%, right? Under what we passed with SB2 last session. So,
did you register your objections to the assumptions with?
I brought it up in committee. My tax assessor mentioned it as well, that she strongly disagreed. We know there's some tax savings, but these numbers are based on estimates that we really can't project on that 0.5%, because I don't believe that's accurate. We haven't seen values go down like that, and right. I don't believe our CADs are going to artificially do that.
But let's go to what we're asking the body to do. Mr. Speaker, if I could get just a little bit.
Members, please take your conversations outside the rail.
Because here we are on the floor about to vote, and so we have a decision to make. Right now, your bill, as estimated by the comptroller, has a fiscal note of close to $2 billion a year. You disagree with the assumptions that have been made and the calculations. However, if this bill passes out of here and becomes law, what assurances, what guardrails exist to make sure that we haven't made some sort of mistake? How are we supposed to know that we're not doing something that would result exactly as the comptroller has predicted or calculated? Because you want our support, and I understand that, but you understand that this leap of faith is a very, very expensive leap of faith. Would you agree?
I'll tell you what is expensive is when the values go up every year and our school districts object and our our CAD objects, but they can't do anything because of the 5% margin of error. So they're stuck with imputing that higher value, and they're punished because of that, and a lot of them have to sue. This doesn't even build into account all the legal fees that have to go into that.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but I am saying that the comptroller has said that you've got close to a $2 billion fiscal note. You disagree with that, I understand, but you're still asking for us to vote, not knowing what it's going to look like or what's going to happen. And by the way, $2 billion in this building is both not a lot and quite a bit. I had a bill where I got a fiscal note of $1.5 million, and that prevented me from getting it here. So here you are with a bill that has a fiscal note of close to $2 billion. You disagree with the calculation, but you haven't given us any assurances that were we to vote for it and pass it, that won't end up being what's happening. And so I'm asking you in a real way to tell all these folks how we know we're not going to be depleting our cash funds by $2 billion a year, which would be about $4 billion a biennium, which is greater, by the way, than the deficit we were facing after COVID.
This doesn't lower funding. This increases the funding to our schools, $21 million a year, and they are still able to raise the tax rate because the only result that this could have is it could possibly lower the increase in values, but they still have the tool to raise the tax rate. This doesn't take away that tool. So the fiscal note for them, if they chose to raise the tax rate, is nothing. It's up to each local city, it's up to each local county, it's up to each local special purpose district to decide that. They can choose to raise the rate or they can choose not to.
But Representative, you understand what I'm saying.
It is up to them.
You understand, and I mean this in the most sincere way, you understand my point, which is there's no way for us to know or verify that because all we have to go on is the statement and testimony you're giving now. There's literally nothing for us to go on to know that that's the case. How would you suggest we go about being responsible and voting for this where all we have to go on is the one body that's responsible for costing out these bills saying it's going to cost $2 billion a year and $4 billion over a biennium?
Because we're leaving the decision on whether or not this has a fiscal impact on each city, county, school district, and special purpose district. We're leaving that to them. They are welcome to raise the rates if they want to or not. It is up to them. It is their decision. They could vote tomorrow to lower rates without this bill and would lower their revenue. That's up to them.
I understand. You understand what I'm saying.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative.